All right, I'm gonna get going in a couple minutes here, but I always like to jump on a couple minutes early, make sure everybody can hear me okay. If you can't hear me, scream into the chat at me. Looks like I'm getting decibels on the mic. Everyone's so quiet. I'll try not to mumble today, but I guarantee you I'm gonna mumble. So if I start mumbling, start yelling at me. I don't take offense to it anymore. Everyone yells at me when I mumble. Nice. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you very much. Oh, Carlos is throwing thumbs at me. All right, it's 11. Can get there to this waiting screen. So yeah, I thought I could just sort of free sketch today. This is something that I was working on a couple days ago and I never finished. But you know, a lot of people have been hitting me with messages on thanks, Jake. Yeah, the shirts just came in. They glow in the dark. So I've been getting lots of messages on Linework, and just like how to improve on it, things like that. And you're never really going to get a satisfactory answer because it's always just practice. But I think we can talk a little bit while I'm working, just sort of like best practices, why I'm making some of these choices. Thanks, Jose. I appreciate it. That's an awesome thing to say. So, like even today, this morning, I spent 3 hours at a farm drawing goats and cows and chickens, and just doing my due diligence of doing life drawing, and it helps. I can already tell that I'm much more warmed up, and I'm kind of like a bit more sort of like in a better place to understand like what I want out of my line work, just because I was trying to get those forms down quickly. Chickens don't sit still, goats sit still better, cows, they're constantly trying to get the flies away from them, so even though they're kind of in the same spot, they're kind of moving. Anyway, regardless, like, you know, like when the thing that you're trying to represent is moving, you basically have to start making decisions, and those decisions are the things that hopefully will lead to you understanding how you want to approach your line work for your own drawings, your own creations. So Mega Cruise, thank you very much, that's awesome. So yeah, there's this like stupid monster that I got here drooling. I definitely want to finish him up, and then I thought, you know, I could just kind of keep sketching on the page and just see what we kind of come up with. Might be garbage, might not be, but we can at least get some questions answered, and if not, I'll just draw. You know, I'm going to draw for an hour or two, and then and we can all go to bed and think about the terrible choices that we've made. All right, so as always, the brushes I'm using are these newsprint brushes. They're the free brushes that I have on the Gumroad links in some of the videos. So if anybody doesn't have them yet, they're nothing special, but I like them. I've just sort of made them up as I've been working. There's like 3 or 4 different kinds here. They're not that different from each other, but they're different enough where like this newsprint number 2 is a little thicker. It has a little bit of tooth to it, a little fade out here, but you can see it doesn't get completely opaque. You have to build it up, which is what I like when I'm doing my sort of rough line work, as opposed to this newsprint 3. It gets dark a lot quicker. It's virtually the identical brush, but it's not it's not exactly the same brush, meaning the pressure sensitivity and the density of the brush. So Casper, good to have you, man. Thank you for coming out. Philippe, thank you very much for coming out, man. I am fine. Like I said just a second ago, I spent the morning drawing goats at a farm, so I'm kind of in a good mood. Hanging out with animals is always good. So, but yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit, just kind of focus on line work. I'm not going to do any coloring or rendering tonight. We'll do that on some of the next vids. The way I like to approach line work is I definitely will build up my lines, but I don't like to see them sketchy. I don't want to see the marks overlapping and kind of hatching. Some people can pull that off, but for me that's not really what I'm going for. And then every once in a while on my work, I really like to be able to sort of figure out a line all in one motion. So, if I'm doing like the back here of this character, I do want to make sure that, I can kind of get the initial shape down in as few lines as possible. So, but the thick to thins, I think, are really important. And I had some great teachers that kind of forced us to focus on learning how to observe where to put these. And I was sketching traditionally. Yeah, I got a new moleskin. I ordered it off Amazon this weekend, and it came, and so I grabbed it and got my number. I don't know if you guys, everybody likes what brushes other people are using, right? And all that stuff. This is my weapon of choice. This is a Pentel P205. It's a mechanical pencil. It's 0.05, and I just use supermarket grade leads in it. I blow through these erasers. So, I don't know if you guys care. And I yank the little metal clip off because it cuts into my hand, so there's that pocket protector thing. But these are great for life drawing because the lead is just soft enough where you get a nice fat edge, and as long as you can kind of maintain that fat edge, you can work some really nice big broad lines, but you can just spin it real quick and get a sharp line so it acts kind of like a chisel because you've been wearing it down and it's got a nice angle to it, and then you spin it. So I also like Colorase pencils. It's when I'm working traditional. They have this like waxiness to them. I really like them. But this is my favorite of all times, and these used to be really difficult to get a hold of, these Pentels, these P205s. They come in two different sizes as well. They have a 3mm and a 7, or maybe it's a 7 and a 9 or something like that. And the barrel is a different color based on the dimension of the lead. 5 seems to sit well with me, but other people like the 7s. I think the 7's got like a turquoise barrel. Anyway, yeah, they used to be really difficult to get a hold of, and now they're in like Target for like $4. So you can get these anywhere. And what I like about them is they're light and they're uber comfortable. They're the closest mechanical pencil I've found that feels like a number 2 pencil as far as like up here goes. Some mechanical pencils have some really weird ergonomics up here. If they're too fat, I don't like them. I get stressed out about that. So this is a good fit. So if you guys want to spend a couple bucks at the supermarket or at CVS or wherever, they should have these. Target has these, I think. You don't have to go to any special art store for them, but they're great. So yeah, drawn traditionally. And then the nice thing about drawing traditionally in the morning is when you hit digital, like you're kind of like reminded what you want out of your line work. So I always like to remember, because I think with digital you start getting, I don't want to call them bad habits because they're not bad habits, but I think you get tricks. You start working on tricks and you start finding ways to kind of cheat things, and you should always know how to cheat. I think that's an absolute given, is that you have to know how to cheat, because you never know when you're going to be in a deadline or when you're just struggling to get something, and it's much more about the message of the piece than it is about the technique. But I think there's also that personal goal. Am I going to be able to pull this off, with my own hands without any of these cheats? So it's good to get out and try. I think you got to bounce between the two mediums as much as possible. If something that the other medium is doing that you want, like for instance, if the line quality that you're getting in your traditional work and you can't get it in your digital work, I think it's mandatory at that point. You have to go back to traditional and kind of feel it once in a while and kind of remind yourself what it is so that you're focusing on the right thing. I'm gonna give this guy a little backpack. You can see like I'm gonna work on this guy's backpack. So when I come across to do this sort of flap on the back, like the overall flap, the line that's facing the light, and there is sort of like there's like a general idea of light, meaning that it's coming from above in some manner of speaking, and it's and then it's casting down over it. So if you know in advance that your piece has a very atypical kind of light, maybe it's coming directly from the side or from underneath or something like that, you may want to switch this up a little bit. But traditionally, I think most lighting with line work, you start as if it's coming from above. So as I make this flap, the line that's sort of below is going to be a little denser. I'm going to spend a little bit more time just kind of getting that to have some body to it. And just by having those two lines have varying weights, you can see even here, right at the crest of where the backpack flap sort of bends over, there's like this implied tension that's going where the light is hitting it. The surface is really tight, and I like to kind of imply tension, just like you'd imagine with like an elastic surface where it's stretching and it's getting really thin right here in the middle. So I do that with my lines. I let them be almost like elastics, where that to show off that tension, I let that line get as thin and sometimes not even existent right at those tense moments. Hope that makes sense a little bit. And so like wrinkles are a good example. Wrinkles are like, if I'm bringing this wrinkle of this chunk of fat over his knee, as it goes up and starts to fade out, it's a nice place to let it just sort of dissipate. But then as other wrinkles form into it, they get dense where they're kind of intersecting that. But they're not dense all the way. They're not one note, like rapidograph pens or, like mechanical pens, which I think has a really cool look to it. But that doesn't count as line weight. That's sort of a dead line. All right. And again, if you see me start to remove the line, what I'm doing, because I'm drawing in Clip Studio, and I apologize if I repeat myself, but I want to make sure everybody knows, I have on my pen, I have the button mapped so that it will swap in Clip Studio between the foreground color and the transparency, which is the little kind of checkerboard grid at the bottom of the color switcher. So when I hit the button, you can see right now that black box is highlighted with a little blue square around it, and when I hit it, now the checkerboard is highlighted with a blue square. So you don't even see me do it, but what it allows me to do is while I'm drawing, I don't have to switch to an eraser to remove. I'm just drawing and then hitting that button with the side of my thumb, and I'm going back and forth. And it was not a natural thing when I first started, but I think even when we're talking about line work, it's really important to have those kinds of tricks, because if I'm building up a line and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I really needed to get that tension at the top of that arc, I can just keep with that same pencil, just start removing. And you can see, like, just by, like, I feel like it has a more consistent vibe when you're using the same pencil rather than switching to an eraser and hoping that, it's the right, if it's too hard or soft, it matches the pencil pretty well. I don't really like having to choose that. I'll use the eraser to just like wipe out big stuff, but I don't think that's good for, working on your line work. So, and then like these cross contours that I'm going to do to kind of get this illusion of sort of like a chewed up leather, those crackles that you see on like bomber jackets and things like that. Those will have a much lighter line weight to them. So you want to focus the eye on what you think is important by having that be the denser line. So it's this sort of like this little dance that you do. Go between them. All right. Now we're gonna do this horn over here. This horn over here has tons of wrinkles or cracks or whatever you want to call it. Kind of got re-inspired to do this horn when I was looking at the goats this morning. And please feel free to ask any questions if you guys have something specific. One thing that I know happens in a lot of conversations is when someone's used to working in a certain way, they sort of are not able to see what other people don't quite understand about what they're doing. So please just interrupt. Ask whatever you want. So I'm just kind of going through lightly and laying in some of these cross contour kind of cracks or whatever you want to say. I'm not going to worry about trying to get the line work perfect first time. Then I have something to kind of go back and trace on. And that way I can concentrate, and I'm just kind of, like working my pressure sensitivity, the heaviness of my hand up, but I have a guide because I know where I want that wrinkle. And then oftentimes I'll go back and I'll hit the silhouette again. I don't think it's harmful to make sure that the outer contours are that really purposeful line. The examples for really beautiful line work to just reference your entire life are Alphonse Mucha, which I think I've mentioned before. He's just, as far as I'm concerned, he's the best. And then another one that I really think you have to pay attention to, and actually is probably the best example for how to learn how to do it, and it's where I learned how to do it, which was graffiti. I didn't do graffiti, but I was just absolutely fascinated with it. I grew up in skate culture. I skated, and graffiti was amazing. And every time we go to Boston, you'd see all the walls and trains and everything just like riddled with this stuff. And there's the weight to the line of that stuff where it looks like it's just, a fancy way of shadowing, but it's not. It's line weight. And they're not hitting that necessarily. I mean, you see the guys that can hit it, with the new kind of like calligraphy tips on the paint cans, on the rattle cans, but that didn't always exist. So there was always multiple passes on the outlines to get those contours to have weight to them. And that's still pretty common. Whenever I do horns like this, I always think they kind of look like a loaf of Wonder Bread. That's what I imagine myself drawing when I'm working on this type of horn. But I like it. I like the sort of ram quality, where ram horns almost look like the way like an octopus tentacle looks, where it has like these nice planes to it. I always think that that's so interesting looking. So always go back and refine these contours and the outer contours to make sure they're just the way you want them to look, and build lines up. Let me ask you guys some questions. What do you think when you're getting pissed off at yourself for your line work? What do you think the biggest struggle with line work is? Is there something specific that's sort of bugging you? There we go. It's nice to always have that second horn done. You know, like whenever you do something and you design something that's like a little bit weird, and then you decide, oh, he's got to have two of them, and you got to draw them twice. You know, like when you invent a form, and then you have to figure out how it looks at another angle. It's always like this nice humbling experience where you're not sure if you're going to be able to pull it off. So when you get the second one done, it's like if you design like a really cool eye, and then you realize, oh wait, they have two eyes, and you have to draw the other one, but it's a slightly different perspective or slightly different size or whatever. It's just satisfying to know that you got the second one done. Alright, so I think this guy, he needs a little bit more stuff on him. I don't think I just want to leave just a backpack. Let's get some buckles going and some of the straps. I could never figure out why backpacks had tons of straps on them all the time. Such a pain. I mean, I know why they exist, but I feel like we could have come up with something better by now. I think some like little buttons or something. I'm gonna use my ruler tool. Little lightning bolt action. What else does he need? Put a wrinkle over the top of that, like the I always like to make it look like there's a little bit of layering going on. Kind of sets it in a little. Get a wrinkle there and then there. Just by dropping a little shadow at varying degrees, kind of makes it look like the fabric or whatever is kind of undulating a little bit. And then you always add the sew seam in, especially on leather stuff. is always cool because anytime you can add a cross contour to show how something was made, but it also shows the form. It's good. Helps describe the form a little bit better to people who are looking at it. Just imply that he has another pin up here. I buy a lot of pins now and I don't have the gall to stick them all over my stuff, so I just have like this drawer full of really cool pins. Looks like he still needs his other foot. You know what? After I get this other foot done, I'm gonna like reverse kink his tail. So like right now it looks like the tail's like wrapping over behind him, but then I'm gonna have it come back. So we'll work out that shape. Let's get this other foot in first. Pretend like he's a little bit like a bulldog Spike from Tom and Jerry, where his feet kind of aim in towards each other a little. Always reminded me of my brother. This big guy. I'm drawing on a Cintiq 24 and I love it. It's awesome. It's the closest that the pen nib of a digital pen had been to the actual surface of your drawing. So it's nice because you know the connection between the tip of your pencil or your tip of your stylus to the actual line is pretty great. You don't feel a very big disconnect. There's still a little float between it, but I mean it's pretty spectacular. And the Apple Pen pencil is pretty great as well. It's got kind of a big nib to it, so even though you're really close to your line, to touching it, and it obscures it because it's so big. Which in traditional media, if you had a really big lead or whatever, it'd be fine because it would be generating the same size line weight. But with digital media, you might have a smaller brush on a bigger nib, so it would be obscuring it. I have a hard time getting used to some of that. Alright, so I'm just gonna use this sort of flatting brush. I've already got a transparent layer down here. Yeah, I'll just start a new one. We'll figure out what shape to make that tail kind of wiggle out. So we can imagine it's going through his body there. And it's starting to curl in and then kind of reverses back. Zoom out a little. Maybe it's gonna do this kind of action. kind of echo the horn curls. I'll put in as many spirals as I can when I'm working. I don't know. Let's see. Take that out. Looks a little high. Alright, let's try it. If it sucks, we'll just take it off. So I'm just gonna, for the sake of, well, yeah. Usually I'll fill it. And then I just drop down that transparency quite a bit. So now I have my silhouette. You can see there's some of that orange. That's some of the other layers. I'll just take that off. So that's nice because you can work out the silhouette and then just use that as your sort of underdrawing. So I know that the tail is going to be laying on the ground, so I definitely want to intensify where the sort of heavy weight lands. But at the same time, I want to kind of give the illusion that it's compressing. So I also want it to be a little thinner right there. So like where the weight of that volume is, to kind of get the illusion that it's starting to crush down that shadow. Get that a little thinner. And then as it eases off and the tail gets a little bit lighter, I will kind of thicken it up and let it stand on its own. And then as it gets more airy, and what I like about this pencil is I let it become even just a bit transparent, a little lighter. That is one thing I'm trying to get more in my work, is less traditional inking and more kind of pencil-y lines. I do like a good pencil line. Alright, so I'm gonna pretend like that's where the kink goes. So start with just kind of laying it in, then I'll go back and I'm gonna add in that density so it really feels like there's weight underneath that kind of larger area. And then just in a kind of like a lighter weight, I'm gonna bring in some of these wrinkles. Like when I'm doing wrinkles, if there's a hard turning away from the form, I'll put more wrinkles as it's turning away. Again, it gives the illusion that they're sort of building up and light's catching them more at a different angle, and then as they kind of push towards the viewer, then I start to ease off and just put them here and there. It's not always the case. Sometimes I just go completely overboard. And then with the wrinkles right at the bottom, you can kind of start intensifying their weights. And we're gonna definitely have to add something like little fins on this tail or something. It's just a little plain for me. I always like Stegosaurus back scales and stuff. So I think that's what we're going for. So we'll go back to this flat layer here. Choose like a different color. So maybe they start kind of small on his back. A couple different rows of them or something. And then they start kind of acting like crocodile scales down his tail here. love using this fill lasso tool to kind of fill out these sort of silhouettes. And then just to get some variation, I'm going to use a slightly different color. I think I'm going to make it look like there's multiple rows of these things. Some interest in there. So maybe I should have done this layer first, but it's alright. I think because he's so heavy, and I love the way like all those extra rows of scales on the back of a crocodile make him feel so armored, and yeah, that should work. That looks kind of cool. I probably need some up on his shoulders. Kind of tie those together. There we go. All right. So I'll just kind of go back and remove the line work where those things overlapped. It's funny when you work so hard on an area of line work, like that compression on that tail, you know, I don't know, probably a few minutes into that, and then you decide to change something, you just obliterate it. Definitely helps work on your thick skin. Anybody got any questions for me? I'm just kind of rambling here. I don't know if I'm actually talking about anything you guys want to hear about. Give these things just a little bit of thickness. That kind of worked out. It looks pretty cool. I like using this silhouette technique a lot now. It feels like cheating, but it's not, because you drew it yourself. But all you're doing is tracing. You know, I think we've all tried tracing things before, and it's not the hardest thing in the world compared to coming up with it from scratch. So when you're tracing your own stuff, that's pretty great. Gotta admit, this is, I never would have done this if it wasn't for Lightbox and kind of getting ramped up for it, but this is a really nice way to start a week, is to hang out with you guys and just draw for no reason. It's awesome. Hope you guys are enjoying the sort of nonsensical qualities of it, just hanging out. I wish we could all just do this all the time. Yeah, these scales, they kind of look like bad dentistry or something. They look cool. Definitely adds like a nice small element to go across some of the bigger forms. I've said it before, but the best line work practice that I ever had was drawing skulls and plants. I prefer skulls. You guys have probably figured that out by now. But plants, like the way the leaf patterns work, especially like indoor tropical plants, they have like those really kind of like grotesquely large leaves and interesting vein patterns. Basically just creatures. So that's really cool. Drawing skulls, that's the best. And it's frustrating too, because you think you know how a skull works, and then you put one at a slightly different angle that you haven't drawn it before at, and the whole thing is just different. And it's pretty humbling. It's one of those things too where you start building up a collection of skulls and your non-artist friends come over and see your shelves covered with skulls. Some interesting conversations. Alright, so we'll turn off those kind of silhouette layers and kind of take a look. We'll go back and just kind of update our line work. Make sure everything's looking nice and the right density and telling the right story. Four spirals worked into this thing. Tail, the tongue, 2 horns. Probably, if I was thinking of it, I probably would have turned up the strap a little bit. Not gonna say I was a huge Tim Burton fan, but I was a huge Tim Burton fan. Everything had spirals. So like right here where his tail is kinking over, it was kind of blending into the tail as it wrapped around. So just by adding some density there, kind of separates that form out. You can see now I'm going to leave where it kind of turns hard to go underneath his, as it's hitting the ground. Let that get tense by just kind of alleviating the line a little bit. Does anybody want to see what my sketchbook is starting to look like with these chickens and goats and stuff like that? I can probably hold it up to the camera. I don't know if it's going to show up. I don't really like showing off my life drawing, but if anybody's curious. This guy's gonna come to a close pretty quick here. we start another sketch or something. Maybe the obligatory skull. Alright, so let's do a skull in the line work. We'll treat it the same way treated this guy, where we start with a silhouette. And we'll just slowly start working up some of the internal details. It doesn't really matter what color, just want to get a silhouette, so get like a cranium going. Figure out how we want that shape to look. Just slightly different color to get the teeth out. I don't always work this way, but I really am enjoying this style. And maybe the eyes, what the eyes look like. And start with the nose, I guess, right? Yep. All right, we can make that guy work, I think. So I'm going to start just with some of the larger shapes. I'm going to cheat a lot of stuff on this skull. I don't care about it being accurate, as long as it's fun. So like where these teeth are hitting, it's a great opportunity to just let the line go, let it die, and then pick it back up where they start to, where the teeth, you know, like where this shows the teeth kind of compressing, you let that line go. Then pick it back up. See, like I'm getting much more dense with these kind of wrinkles as they go underneath the zygomatic bone, to kind of indicate that they're slowly getting into sort of like the shaded areas. And where these lines converge and kind of get together, that's also where I'm adding a lot more weight to the line. one thing that's kind of tricky about this these newsprint brushes that I made is when you're trying to, I mean, I use it to my advantage. You can see like on the nose where there's like kind of like a lighter value, but when you're doing a solid, you have to keep coloring all in one motion. As soon as you stop and you go back to the same area, it's going to double up on you. So you gotta go for it. That can be problematic from time to time if you get interrupted or you just break your mark. All of a sudden, matching that up can be kind of a trick. So if you're gonna do something like shade inside these eyes, you gotta do it. You gotta hit it. Some sort of false sense of confidence or something. I'll show you another trick though that I use because I don't have that false sense of confidence. I don't have regular confidence. So I had to find my trick. So I'm going to use these to kind of create these like flare wrinkles. Kind of cool. Wrinkles, cracks. I think they'd be cracks if they were bone, right? Right. Fake like a little parietal bone in there. Again, I don't care if it's accurate. It's just fun to have those extra lobes. Has anybody tried out the brushes that I put up on Gumroad? Anybody had any success with them? They're just called the demo brush set. I've seen some people are downloading them. I don't know if anybody's actually given them a shot. I'm notorious for downloading a brush and then just sitting on it for a long, long time. So skulls are good practice for this kind of like line work because there's just a lot of crevices that will get kind of like intricate, and then they kind of go to a smooth, they like dissipate out onto a smooth surface and then kind of like go into like a deep area again. So like this little like gum line tooth area here, you know, just by using the weight of the line, I'm kind of giving it this quality where it looks like it's like starting to get really deep in there, and the line is doing all the work to make that happen. Alright, so what I'm going to do to get this larger mass of darkness in these eyes, I'm going to go on a separate layer, and I'm going to just increase the brush size because the texture in the brush, the noise stays the same, but I'm just going to kind of lay it in really sloppy, all in one hit. I'll go back and I'll just erase what I don't need with my flat brush. That is my cowardly workaround. Once in a while, I have it. My hands are warmed up enough where I can just go for it and color it all in without making any mistakes, but those days are not common. go. And then I can merge that with the line layer, and that way I can just work on them together again. If I wanted to put little details inside, like little cross contour wrinkles or something like that. It's all working on the same piece now. So at some point, it's always good to just turn off that silhouette layer, see what you actually got, because sometimes it's doing a lot of lifting. You got to make sure that your line work is actually going as well as you want it to go. Cast a little shadow around these gums. Gotta make it look like it instantaneously looks like the zygomatic bone there is starting to come out in front. Do the same thing with some of these teeth. Just put a little shadow behind them and it just automatically sets them forward. I don't know, drawing skulls just never gets old. Alright, we're coming up on an hour here. I'd sketch for a little bit longer, but guys have anything that you want to know about, even if it's nothing to do with this exact line work stuff, let me know. So I'm just kind of going and sort of refining my silhouette, the outer contour of this. Just kind of making some decisions, as the form hits that light. Does that line need to be thinner? Does it even need to exist where these little wrinkles are? Do I kind of calm them down, let the line be heavy, and then lighten up where it starts to sort of crest out of the form a little bit? And then as it gets underneath the skull, where we know that we're indicating light, that's going to be a lot heavier. I think this refinement process is hidden in a lot of work, where you Just assume everyone's hitting it first try. And I think some people do. And those people are amazing. But going through and just really making sure the piece is saying what you want it to say and the lines are where you need them to be to kind of get that vibe that you're looking for. And I love, the balance of sort of like a traditional line on a stylized form. That looks really cool. Sort of my goal in life is to just kind of keep exploring that. I'm gonna put horns on this guy. Just like little devil horns. I know I got horns on this guy right here, but just needs horns. Little nubs. Happy little nubs. Let's see where we're at. Alright, I'm gonna draw one more thing. Don't know what can I draw. Maybe just do like a dumb monster head or something, huh? It's like that game that you play with friends where they just draw something random and you have to fill it in. It was fun to just start with some random shape. Figure out what you're going to do with it. So right now I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. I know I'm putting a wrinkle right there. Let's see. Big stupid eye. And needs like let's see if we can make that into something. So again, keep that line heavy as it moves away from the kind of like top, and then as we come across the top, we'll just let that line be a little lighter. Just let the weight of it kind of help describe where the tension of the form is. I don't know if it's become painfully clear, but I just love drawing teeth. Not like nice clean teeth, obviously. Just like bad dinosaur dental record teeth. All different shapes. I think that's why, right? It's like, you ever drawn the same one? Each one next to it. It's like its ugly friend. Same techniques though, just internal details tend to be a little bit lighter. Where there's tension between forms, just kind of let those lines ease off a bit. Go back and refine what's not working. Alright, I had to do a test just because, and I don't want to sound vain, but nobody said anything in a while. Is the chat working? If it is and nobody wants to talk to me, totally cool. But I just want to know if it's just a technical issue because I don't want to ignore anybody either. But can someone just let me know if it's working or not? I don't really know if I have any recourse if it isn't working. Or maybe I'm just not seeing it update. Alright, so one of two things are happening. Either everybody's gone, nobody cares about teeth, or I'm not getting updates on the chat. Let's see. Yep. Sucks. Do a redo on this if I'm right and everything's borked and I'm not reading chats. Give me 1 second, I'm gonna see something. Ah, crap. Yeah, so I can see the chat in another window. Oh, that sucks. You guys have been chatting away. I'm not seeing the comments. Alright. But I think I can do it. Let me mute this. I'm going to do my typical workaround thing. I can see it in another window. So I'm like one of you. You guys been chatting away. Hi, Kyle. Jordan, Philippe, Mason. Kyle again. Alright, so I'm going to cheat. So yeah, I'm just cheating. I know. I'm just, whatever. Part of being an artist is not knowing what you're doing and just hustling to get it working. Alright, so I'll just lay out all the things that I was asking. I don't need to know if the chat was working because we figured that out. Is there anything about line work that I'm doing that you guys want to get further into? Are you just happy to watch me sketch? Want me to shut up and just go to bed? Oh, I have so many questions to read. All right, give me a second. Let me go back. Let's see if I can get a few of these. Dang, he thinks no one has any questions. Yes, I didn't. Oh, it only goes back to 11:58. All right, let me see if anybody. He can like and unlike the video in Morse code. That would. All right, next week I'm going to learn Morse code. All right, I'm just going to keep drawing. Okay, so Amanda. Hi, Kim. Hi, Amanda. Can you get nicer line work clip over Photoshop, or is it just practice? Software doesn't really matter. Okay. I definitely prefer the brush engine in Clip Studio. Not because it's... I would guess the technology is almost identical, because there's nothing to say that Adobe can't just throw a ton of money. And I know I just updated to the newest Photoshop. It hasn't changed at all. But I think it was 2019 or 2018. I don't even know if there was a 2018. But anyway, the previous version of 2019, the brush engine got a lot better, a lot smoother. I think it had something to do with their brush engine. I think it had a lot to do with them just optimizing it so that it worked better with, our mediocre PCs and laptops and things. That said, so let's say the technology is equivalent. They both can handle, the same quality of line work. But I think when it comes to actually doing line, you need as many sort of like sliders as you can get to kind of dial a brush to fit the way that you like. I'm very heavy-handed most days. I like to lean on my brush really hard, and other days I come in, I'm really light. So when you get into the settings of the brush, in here in Clip, there's not only just like brush sizes and the brush tip, you have the hardness of it, you have the thickness of it, but even when you get into it, you can put pen pressure on, and you can adjust these curves for how thick you want them to be on your heavy hand and on the light hand. You can do it based on your tilt, you can do it on your velocity, and you can do that with the spraying effect, with the stroke, how far you want the gapping to be, the texture density. They can all be geared, they can all be set you can put this little eyeball on, and it will keep that live in your sort of like live adjustments over here. And that's really nice, because if it's something that you're constantly changing, then you're going to want it to be live. Otherwise, you just turn off the eyeball and it disappears. But any one of these that has these little dollops next to it, you can go in here and you can see, like on this one, this pen pressure, I have it just ever so slightly kicked over so that in the middle of my stroke, I want it to be a little bit lighter because my hand gets a little heavier. It's just about having that ability, those details, those little subtle adjustments to kind of match the detailing of how your hand moves. So you can take any of the brushes that I made, you can go into those settings and you can make those match how your hand moves, and you're going to find that is more appropriate for you. And I like that about Clip. I like that they're really considerate of the artist, and I think Photoshop tries to do that, but they're trying to handle everything. So you can't expect Photoshop to cater to every single person who's doing all the different things that Photoshop can do. and be just the best at it. I mean, those things just don't often go together. They do a great job, and I still use Photoshop a lot. But when it comes to doing line work, I really like Clip. And Sketchbook has a really nice line, and Procreate has a really nice line. So they're all rivals, and they're cheap. And I love cheap. All right, so that was for Amanda. Let me go back up here. You guys have been popping them in. Okay, so Spearman's good. No, keep drawing. Charles, I'm going to do both. Do you zoom in for something? Okay, so I will say with zooming in, you have to be really careful. So when I zoom out, my line work starts to thin out, right? So if you are going in like this and you're working, you can see how thick that line is, right? And then the brush is going to cater to it because it's still sized properly. But what happens is, I think mentally, you start making thinner lines because you remember that you wanted it to be a thinner line overall. That was going to be the line weight. And then when you zoom back out, then those lines are too thin. And so if you can mentally remember that you are trying to accomplish the same kind of line weight, and when you zoom in, you're mentally able to scale that brush, you're good to go. That's no problem. But if you do it too much and you kind of get caught up in being too zoomed in, you're going to zoom back out and you're going to see a ton of tiny little details, and it may not be the look that you're going for. So just be careful of it. So that was for Samantha. Alex. It would probably be easier for people just to repost their question. Thank you, Alex. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's part of my life. Can I ask a question on design? Of course you can ask a question on design. I'll just ignore it if it's a terrible question, but I doubt it will be. Can we see your chicken and goat sketches? Yes. I don't know how this is going to work because all I have is my webcam. Who asked that one? Oh, that was for Pablo. All right. So page 1. Let's see what I do here. So those are goats. Oh no, those are cows. Those are cows. And then cows and chickens. Cows and chickens. It's almost the right format. Trying to get my fingers out of the way. Chickens are really fun. This page has cows and chickens and goats. Everybody got a turn on this page. Right? And I think I got one more page. Oh, just half a page. Or with some goats and chickens. So, super scribbly. Line weight was a big part of today. But nice to have a couple hours to just sketch. Alright. Where are we at? That was the goats. Kyle is praising the Lord. Casper is asking... Oh, I just moved too far. When your digital ink line is semi-transparent, don't you find it hard to control the color of the line work? Yes. 100%. If I plan on coloring the line work, you have to do a couple things. Like you have to... if it's going to be a transparent line, you got to make sure that your fill goes all the way to the outer contour. I mean, you have to be perfect. Like normally you can be kind of sloppy if you have really dense line work. You can go kind of like in the middle of the line and it's going to get covered up by the line, so you don't have to be quite so accurate. But when you have a transparent line, the outside contour of that fill needs to go just as carefully across that line as possible. That way when you color the line work and it's transparent, it's sitting on top of the flat color that you intend, or whatever the base colors, whether it's the rendering or if it's flat or whatever. That will work. Otherwise, if you are going to color it and the color of the line work is going to visually lighten up that line, let's say a girl's hair is blonde and you've gone really light with the lines, but then you're going to color it yellow. Well, you can go into Photoshop or into Clip and you can double and triple up your line work so it gets really dense, and then you can color it yellow, and visually it's going to get much lighter. So that's 2 ways to deal with it. I've definitely run into exactly what you're talking about. It's very, very frustrating. All right, Spearman 247. Hey, so in designing, are there any principles of design that are consciously thinking about, like shape, language, proportions, composition? Yes, all of them. It's pretty much why I've gone to this sort of like silhouette stuff, because silhouette is first. I want to make sure, if I had just started drawing this little alien creature or that skull without figuring out the silhouette first, I probably would have made those ear nubs too small, or maybe I was so excited to start doing the teeth that I started making those too small. I want to make sure that the forms are popping. I want to get that stuff done first, and then if whether you're using the rule of thirds or you're using the golden mean or whatever you like to balance it, it's always good to have a rhythm of compression and tight details, and then places of rest. Let the eye rest. So I'm not, in the belly of this alien, I'm not going to put a ton of detail, because he's got all this kind of like tight compressed detail around the eye and the teeth and the back of the neck. Those are all forcing me to give the viewer a rest. And then once they've had that rest, I'm going to start adding some detail. So maybe at the base of this neck, that's a good time to start really compressing those details in again. And that way, this area right here, that's a rest area. That's somewhere where you can kind of take a break and feel calm, and that makes the wrinkles more interesting. It makes the calm of the form more interesting. And that goes for everything. That goes for your composition, that goes for your overall forms, your internal forms, your color. How do you keep those rhythms going? Jordan. Hey Jordan, does the way you hold your pen affect the amount of control you have? It probably does, but I've been drawing like most of you guys since I was a little kid, and my bad habit is my bad habit. I draw really heavy. I try desperately not to draw on the wrist anymore, although I do glide off my pinky. I do try and draw as much as I can off the shoulder and off the elbows, especially when I'm working out my silhouettes. I think the forms are a lot more fun, a lot more fluid. But everybody has those different grips. Even if you were like gonna Cro-Magnon it and just draw like that, as long as you can get the dexterity of what you're trying to get, I think I hold it. I don't even know if you want to call this traditionally. This is just the way that I've always held the pencil since I was little. It's the way I learned to write, and I think maybe that's the best thing. Whatever you use to write is probably the best way to hold your pencil. I don't think that there's, I'm sure a doctor or someone sophisticated could probably tell you that there's a better way to hold a pen, but I think whatever makes you comfortable is going to be the best way to hold your pen. Okay, Sebastian, how you doing? What exercises would you recommend to practice understanding line and weight? My usual go-to thing is skulls and plants. So go out and, like a leaf is so beautiful, and you want to make sure that you get the high edge. Like when you think of plant life, it has these beautiful thicks and thins, and you can practice everything just by looking at it. When you are done with a line drawing and you feel like you represented nature, you are on the right track for beautiful line work. So, and skulls. Skulls, I think, are closer because skulls are better for me because of, obviously, I draw a lot of teeth and things like that, so I'm really fascinated by them. But like, just the elegance of an organic plant form is going to teach you so much, and it's perfect right now because we aren't able to get into model sessions and actually draw from people. So, getting some leaves or just drawing a plant in the house, something like that, is awesome. All right, let's see. Any advice for making huge long lines? Buckle up. You got to kind of put on the mental seatbelt, and I think you definitely. The 2 tricks that I do is I definitely ride off my pinky. So I'm doing sort of like the maul stick pinky thing where I've got that braced like that, and then I'm definitely going to draw off my shoulder, and then move quick. Move at a rate where you're not gonna give in to the shakes too much. You just kind of whip through it. And if that's not working for you, and maybe I'm not supposed to condone this, there's these little stabilization tabs in Clip Studio, and if you set it to the maximum and you make a wiggly line, it will go through and it will correct it. And I don't know, maybe I don't have it set high enough, but it's kind of like Flash where it used to correct the line a little bit. Let's get in a little closer, see if it's doing it. No, it doesn't seem to be correcting it for some reason. So maybe it'll work on this one. Stabilization on. There, let's clean that up a little bit. So if I take a, you can barely see it, but it is helping. It's kind of cleaning up the mark. And I think you could probably get into the settings and, oh, there it is, post correction. So beep, there it is. That's like extreme, right? So, so you can set those to like whatever you want. So there it goes. Doesn't fix it as much. But, you know, that's, again, that's like, have your cheats. Know, like, you know, you have a deadline and you're tired and your hands just aren't working for you. You can go to that stuff, but practice doing it traditionally. And I think you'll be happy. All right. Amanda, awesome. Oh, good. Glad I got to answer your question. I'm so sorry about this chat thing. What canvas settings is good for the best quality line work? Carlos. Okay, so everything should be above 300 dpi. I tend to work 400 dpi. And we'll have a very quick discussion about DPI because a lot of people don't understand DPI in the sense that, like, everyone says it has to be a certain, all you really care about is your pixel resolution. So I work 4 to 5 to 6,000 pixels wide. If it's going to be a much more prominent piece, like it's going to be a poster, it'd be 8,000 pixels. All you care about is the number of pixels you have. That's digital real estate. If you have 8,000 pixels set to 72 dpi and you have 8,000 pixels set to 600 dpi, it's the exact same resolution. It's just a different print resolution, which you will want to adjust before you give it to a printer. But as far as what the actual data is, it's the same number of pixels. So work as high as you can. 300's the minimum, 400's ideal. And the caveat to that is it really depends on what your computer can throw. You know, if it's having trouble at 400, go to 300, you'll be fine. At 300, if you upscale something with some of these new kind of like filters, it works great. Okay. Kyle's retracting messages. Oh, he was cussing me out, I'm sure. Let's see. Oh, cows. Yep, I love cows. I want a cow. Someday I'm going to have a cow. I have a messages on Instagram. Okay. Thanks, Spearman. All right, Jake. When you draw from life, do you naturally exaggerate or no? I don't. I don't exaggerate when I'm working from life. I used to in college. I did a lot. And then I kind of had to smack myself. This is a personal thing, but I had to smack myself because I wasn't there for the right reasons. I was trying to teach myself to measure, to see properly, and then you make the choice. I think if you're making those choices too soon and you're not able to measure, then like you're gonna get yourself into trouble. At some point, you're going to need to measure something, and it's not gonna happen. You're gonna be in trouble. So, life drawing is about teaching you to get you out of your bad habits, to, you know, just hone your skills. And if you're not using them 100%, I mean, it's like going to the gym, right? Like there's the basketball court at the gym and stuff like that, but like really, like going to the gym is about getting the exercise, practicing, getting as good as you can, and then you can go out and do it however you want. So for me, I have changed my tune on life drawing. I try to draw as accurately as possible when I'm there. So all right, let's see. Samantha, would you recommend a tablet with screen? I've seen one without a screen, but it feels so slow. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I have one of those. I know what you're talking about. I've heard tablets that help posture. I would recommend, Samantha, an iPad. If you're going to do anything, get an iPad. The reason is you're going to get more value out of it. It's an amazing device. The screen's amazing. The pencil's amazing. The big, I don't have mine in here right now. It's over on the couch. And you can get like these really nice little, it looks just like a Cintiq, but it's like you drop the iPad in and you can set it right on your table. Like there's all these peripherals that go along with it that are great. It has and like I said, the pencil's really great. It's stable as all get out. I think the Wacom or Wacom, I'm not going to get into the argument how to pronounce that, is pretty great now. I mean, they have some really high quality monitors in there, but they just have weight to them. They're CPUs, they get hot, they got fans. There's nothing particularly wrong with them, but I think the iPad's just lighter. It's got a beautiful screen. You can cruise the internet on it. You can do your banking on it. It just has a lot of versatilities. I just really like it. So Samantha, if you can spend the money, I would go with an iPad. I would go with Procreate. Clip Studio has an app that is like 100% the same as a PC version for the iPad as well, which I use. I do so much of my work now on the iPad, and I can just bring it right to my PC. I just use Dropbox. I just upload it and download it again, and it's seamless. It's beautiful. So that would be my suggestion there. All right. No problem, Sebastian. Jordan, you're welcome. Carlos? No, I wasn't loving it. Made a typo. Okay, well, if you want to cuss me out, it's okay. That's fine. Should you print in CMYK or RGB? Nowadays, it's kind of up to where you're printing. For the most part, you can get away with RGB. I don't know. Maybe people are going to jump down my throat. So if you send most of your artwork to a printer at an RGB level, and you've done a test print on an Epson or something like that, you're probably going to get good results. They are really good at converting it. Most conversions from RGB to CMYK are pretty sophisticated now, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. That said, there are a few of your colors, if you paint very high chroma in the cyans and the magentas or the reds, that go dead and they change on you. So it's good to do a CMYK check, which is pretty easy to do. I don't know how to do it in Clip. I'm sure it's pretty easy, but in Photoshop it's really easy. It's a toggle. I think it's Control Y, and you just do a check. The best thing is just to print it out on an Epson or a Canon and just see where your colors are going dead. And obviously there's density. If you're going with a cheap printer, you do want to pay attention to your CMYKs. You want to adjust your colors. But you can kind of do that after the fact. So it's always good to paint the way you want it to look and then adjust to that rather than to paint up to those limits. That would be my personal preference. All right. And then Spearman, Kyle, yo, they seem pretty cool. You have a portfolio I can check. Oh, you guys are networking. Cool. Samantha, you're welcome. Casper. In the shred book, you have 3 ink steps. Thin, bold, back to thin. Oh, Dave came up with a lot of that stuff. He's notorious for doing that. I'm a bit more of a free flow guy, but he's right. Like the thins are good to get down, and then you can kind of go through and kind of like build up your lines. That's sort of a day-to-day thing. That's a preference thing, and obviously, just looking at his work, it works. So there's no argument there. But I tend to just kind of work as I'm going. So I think you kind of have to feel that one out. So that's yours, Casper. Charles. Okay, so I asked earlier, this is a non-how-to question, laugh out loud. Are you doing another shred or doing a bigger Lost Bear art book? Love your work. Oh, I'm not doing a bigger art book just now. I'm working on a comic. So as soon as I get that done, I'll put that up in my shop. Right now, the only thing I have in my shop is a little sketchbook called Mindless, and some stickers and some pins and stuff like that. So you can check that out. And that's only like a little 16-page sketchbook that comes with a bunch of exclusive stuff. But yeah, I'm working on a comic. As far as another art book goes, that would be awesome. I can't wait to do something like that. That'd be super fun. Kyle, thank you very much, man. Definitely get some sleep, and we'll hook up next week doing the same thing, and hopefully the chat works that time. But thanks for coming out, man. All right, I'm gonna work on this alien a little bit. Oh, I screwed up my brush. I gotta take the stabilization off. There we go. Okay. The goats today, they have those crazy eyes. Oh my god, they're so scary. Where like it's like that sidewards octopus looking eye. Seeing that? It's terrifying. They look at you with two of them and you're just like, I think I'm gonna pee myself. Look at that. That's terrifying. And that thing's staring at you and you know it's as dumb as a box of rocks, but at the same time it's got those eyes. Oh gosh, that's awful. So glad I can answer your questions now. I felt so bad. I had a feeling. But at the same time, I didn't want to be like, oh, everybody should be asking me questions. So like, you know, earlier I was saying like I'm a bit more free flow, but like, you know, like I'm now kind of going through and just kind of chewing up my lines, just like that example that we were referring to where some of the lines are a little too thin for me, so I just want to put some more body to them. You know, like these teeth don't match up to the weight down here, so where those things kind of converge, it's a good time to go through and just kind of bring those up so that we're all kind of at the same level. So we've got our thin lines, we've got our base lines. But now we can kind of get some more unification in the piece. You know, just by adding those little dark, heavier lines, kind of where the convergence of those forms are, starts to tie it to some of the larger shapes, you know, denser shapes down here, and it feels like it's all one cohesive piece. So it's always good to kind of take a step back, look what's missing, and definitely turn off this silhouette at some point. So you turn off the silhouette, and you just now you really see where you need to keep adding stuff or subtracting. All right, so Carlos, you got mindless? Awesome. Hope you liked it. It was definitely fun to make. Can you color that creature in the corner? I'm not gonna color tonight, but we can definitely do that. I got a few requests to color something simple, so that it's sort of like we can kind of like go through it. So we can put together like a simple demo, and then maybe next week we'll do like a simple. I did, you know, in the previous videos I colored things through and through, but tonight I just wanted to focus on line work, and that's all I'm going to stick to for now. But yeah, I think we can next week, if that makes sense. Let's do like I'll have like a drawing kind of like ready to go, and then we'll just color it, just keep it super simple, and have like, you know, and we'll even try some variations on it. We can pretend like art directors are having their way with it and changing things, and we can just kind of like work through flows like that, so it makes sense why I work this way and why I like to work in a very modular coloring and shading passes, so that, you know, it's really easy to take notes and not feel like you're gonna have to start completely over. So yeah, I will make that a priority for next week if that's okay. Concept cool. Alex, thanks. Another great stream. I have to run. Thank you very much for coming out, Alex. I appreciate it. Philippe, do you work your lines on full black color? Do I work my lines on full black color? What does that mean? Hold on. Oh, yeah. You mean like, yeah, I definitely, when I'm doing my line work, I do that. And then when I get into the coloring stage, I think Casper was talking about it, or someone was bringing it up about coloring the line work. And that's pretty much as simple as putting a layer above it and linking it, and then you can color over your line work. And so yeah, I definitely stick with the black and white because that gives you the full range. And then later, if you want to color something, you have that option, and you're not restricted to anything. So you can see, like, I can color this however I want, lighten them up, and I think I used an example of some like blonde hair before. It's very fast, and then I can just turn that off, and I still have all my black and white line work down below it. So that works best for me. Do you think we could do a challenge sometime where you assign a creature or a theme or something, and we all have to go at it, and you might do it? Oh, that's awesome, Nick. That's a wicked good idea. I'm from Boston, so I say wicked a lot. Yes. Yeah. Let's not do it next week, but that way I can stick to my plan. But yes, that would be awesome. We could do like a fake project where like we have like designer criteria, where like we have to think about like, like where the creature lives and whether it's gonna eat you or something like that, or if it's prey or whatever, and we can come up with I'll come up with some criteria, and then send out that as sort of like anybody who wants to participate assignment kind of thing, and then you guys can shoot them to me a little bit early. Yeah, that would be super fun. It'd be fun for me too. And then like I can even hit the same challenge, and then we can just like get up and just start making fun of each other and figuring out like who had some ideas that were super successful, and we can riff off of that stuff. Yep. Definitely. All right, so this guy needs horns on his back. So I'm going to use my old trick where I draw them on a layer above it. Cool. Oh, good. I'm glad so many people are going to do it. That'd be awesome. Halloween themed. Yes. See? It's like groupthink. Like, you don't even have to come up with a good idea. Just everybody participates and you get a good idea. Sorry, I'm concentrating on these horns. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do, Jake, I can do that. Those are, so I like I'm sure you guys have done this where you just like, you're out in your yard and something stands out, whether it's a butterfly or some crazy mushroom or something like that. And I've just started drawing into them. You know who does a lot of it is Florian Setzinger. He's awesome. He's such a funny guy. And he paints into things. And when I first kind of like went out on my own last year, I was like looking for little inspirations, and that guy is just knocking out some of the funnest stuff. So I did some of that. I was walking around, there's mushrooms all grown in my backyard, and I was taking pictures of them. So yeah, maybe we'll get like a photo, and I use it because I really like it's kind of like life drawing in a way. Like I'm drawing whatever I want, but I'm teaching myself color theory at the same time, which I think is something that you always need to brush up on. Like, how do you get your shadows to integrate in? How do you get your color palette of your character to work in an environment? One of the things in video games that was like notoriously one of the worst things that would ever happen is you'd inevitably come up with like a red character, and then that was like way before the level was designed and lit, and then you'd show up to like see it finally implemented, and of course the level's red, the lighting's all red, and that character just completely disappears into the background and you can't get it to stand out. So like you'd have to then come up with like some sort of like cross complementary, or if you were just gonna use value to get that character to stand out, whatever trick you had up your sleeve. But just practicing that, seeing if you can pull something else, see if you can make a character blend in if they're supposed to be camouflaged, see if they're, if you can integrate them properly into the environment so they, they're reading the same way. It's just all these very kind of like fun challenges, kind of self-imposed challenges. Oh, Amanda's gonna do it with us too. Cool. This is gonna be fun. All right. So yeah, let's I will come up with kind of like the rules. We'll start with Halloween theme. Won't be for next Monday. Next Monday we'll do like some simple rendering and stuff like that, and then we can kind of discuss like what I came up with, and then I'll set a date for probably like maybe the Monday after that. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but yeah, something like that, and then we can all figure out like how we're going to do that. That'll give me a little time to figure out like technically how we get everybody to put their work. Maybe we'll tag it. Maybe we'll just use like social media and just tag it so everybody can kind of look up the tag list to come up with something that hasn't been used. Casper, do you have any rules or tips on how much you deviate from your inking lines from your sketch lines? I tend to undo endlessly until the ink line is 100% like the sketch line, and it takes forever. I don't hold myself to that. I think I anticipate it leading to the exact same thing that you just said it does to you, and I need to enjoy this enough where I don't fall prey to that. So I try and keep the sketch as a guide, but I don't go too hardcore following it. And I think that's gonna be what I always do, is I always lean into just using the sketch as a sketch. That said, I am still trying to figure out how to keep my drawings as alive as my sketches. And I love when I hit a sketch and it has a lot of life to it. And then I hit it with inks and it kills it, and it, it deadens the forms, deadens the, the flow, the line of action. Everything starts to feel really stiff. And I think that's, probably a frustration a lot of people are running into. And I think part of why I won't commit to my sketch is that exact reason. I want some of that looseness and that fluidity to show up in my inking stage. So I don't want to bring my sketches to a stage where that is exactly what I want. I want my inks to be exactly what I want. And so the sketches have to be sort of like, they have to stop at the point where I still have the fun to have that fluidity and that kind of like discovery of line in the inking stage. Otherwise, that is the best I've come up with to the solution that you're getting into. Doesn't work every time. Still have a bunch of pieces that I look at and think I just absolutely destroyed that, even though I thought the rough was pretty great. So it's not a perfect system, but I would loosen up the reins on whether you're going to follow that rough that tight. That's just a suggestion. Everybody's a little bit different. Thanks, Charles, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, guys, I'm going to go for about 10 more minutes, and then I'm probably going to hit the sack as well. See what else we can do to this thing. Kind of make it a little funnier. It definitely needs like a t-shirt or something, but I don't know if I'm going to do that tonight. Kind of fit him in here. There we go. Some veins. drawing veins on like semi-cute characters. It's always hilarious to me. I think one of my favorite things is when you get that nice mashup of cute and disgusting. I definitely lean on the side of cute, but I don't know. I just like I like that the way that sort of challenges the situation. If you guys are curious about, I don't even know what it's called. Hold on. If you guys are curious about some of my other life drawing, I have a page. It's more about my, I don't keep up with this page, so, but if you look up this username in Instagram, you guys can see some of the life drawing that I do with models. There's a lot of pictures of like mushrooms and flowers and whatever else, because it's where I post stuff that I just like think is cool. So don't think of it as like anything legit or anything like that, so don't make fun of me. But it's like where I like send my folks if I want to show them something. But I do post all my life drawing over there, because a lot of my old college buddies and I are following and stuff like that, so definitely check that out if you like the life drawing. And you can, the reason I'm bringing it up is you can see the difference between, it's like the same line weight. I don't think I can take that out of my system. I still do the same line weight, but it's I am really trying to pay attention to proportion, to what the line weight actually needs to be, what the lighting is. Like, I'm trying to train myself to be as accurate as I can be, and usually that ends up in disaster. But the nice thing about Instagram is you only post the ones that you think weren't a disaster. But I don't think there's been one life drawing session that I've come out of that I haven't thought, all right, I am better off. I'm better off at getting back to the stylized stuff. I have like new tools and new shape logics and things like that. It's nothing more fun than when the model is like a really unique proportion set, and you see different shapes, the way that their wrist taper and the way that their musculature, if they're like, more sinewy, or they have like more of like old man muscles where they've just been working with their hands their whole lives. All these different shape logics start kind of emerging. And if you're designing a character and all of a sudden like something needs to look like it worked from its hands, like you have that now. That's a new thing. It's a new kind of like way of showing, without having to explain through dialogue, that this character has lived a life, or whatever it is. So that's why, another good reason why I think life drawing is so important. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. I obviously, I don't think any of us love showing our life drawing off, but my wife runs it. My wife used to run the sessions. She would hire the models. She's an amazing painter, and she would get us out there and drawing, and it just became such a, I mean, I don't know, it's for you, it's like you get done with it. For me, it's the exact same thing as going to the gym. I have zero interest in doing it beforehand. I mean, I want to do it, but then like when you go to do it, when you go to say like I'm gonna go do it, you don't want to do it. But then when you finish your 2-3 hour session, you're so happy with yourself, so good. So you gotta kind of like just kind of push yourself through that. Going, wow, isn't it overwhelming closing up and defining all of that information in one drawing? Yes, I am overwhelmed all the time, and I love it. Yeah, being overwhelmed is just, I don't know. I think it's the driver. Is like, I feel overwhelmed. I want to become comfortable with what's overwhelming me, and then figure out what's overwhelming me after that. It's like, it's this constant, it's everything. Art is just a beast. It's just constantly testing to see how far you can go. And the beauty is, as we've seen from just like an amazing artists out there, you could just keep going. So if something's making you uncomfortable, it is surmountable. You can do it. You just have to learn it. And then once you learn that, something else will bother you, and you learn that. It's just on and on and on. It sounds masochistic, but that's like amazing. It's such a great thing. All right, we're closing in on 1 o'clock in the morning for me. So that's a couple hours of drawing, plus goats and sheep and all my actual work today. My hand's about to fall off. All right, I'll take questions for the next couple minutes, and then I'm gonna call it for tonight, guys. But next week, I'll post it up around Thursday or Friday that I'm gonna do the live stream. We're just gonna go through kind of like a simple coloring pass. I know they're kind of like, it's exactly the same as what I've done on some of the more complex, heads and stuff like that I've done recently. But we'll just kind of simplify it. Ask a lot of questions, whatever, and then at the end of that, I'll see if I can't present something that we can all do together. Cool. Oh, Amanda, we're on the same time zone. Who would have thought? Oh, good. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. I'm loving this. I wish we could actually talk. I'm not quite ready to get into the Zoom thing yet, but yes, this is awesome. I really appreciate you guys yapping at me, and it's awesome. Yeah, I know it's 11 o'clock somewhere. But I already had my 11 o'clock. It was awesome. I don't know if that's true. It was when I started doing this. 7 a.m. in Denmark. Okay, I can't draw at 7 a.m. I don't even know if I could draw at 10 a.m. There are people who can draw right when they wake up. I have to wait till at least 2 or 3 cups of coffee course through my veins before I can even consider drawing. Unless, of course, I've got to tell you, you're in Tokyo? 14 hours? Oh my gosh. Good, Samantha. Thank you very much for coming out. Alright, I'm going to save my file. You guys got 1 minute if you have any last questions. Otherwise, I will catch up with you guys next week. Same time, same place, same channel. Cool. Alright, well, thank you very much, guys. And we'll see you next week. That's right, Casper, you're not. But you should be. No. Cool. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. It's always fun for me too, so we'll do more. We'll just keep doing more and more and more until you guys all draw better than anything I could ever do, and then I'll go on your streams. Cool. Alright, see you guys next week.